So this week we were doing parenting. So if you are a parent to kids with ADHD, or you have ADHD and you've got kids, so either way, we have our challenges. So we had a session on Monday for our members, which was incredibly cathartic, incredibly moving. I think loads of us were in tears, including Steph and I. So today, not sponsored by Kleenex, other tissue brands are available, but I have them ready just in case, because this one's very emotive, isn't it, Steph?
Yeah, definitely didn't see that one coming on Monday, because I have done now the Parenting with ADHD webinar during ADHD Awareness Month. There were no tears then, but I guess the difference is when we're interacting with our members, it's there's an authenticity, a connection about it that one member will say something and then whoa, tearjerker, and that's what happened to me on Monday. And the comment that was made was that this particular member, once their child was born, she said she's always been in survival mode since the day he was born.
And I think what occurred to us that we had as well.
Yeah.
And just that fight, flight, and always ready to go when you've got kids with special needs, and the strain that it puts on your body, your brain, your emotions, your other relationships is just massive. And it was kind of, you don't want to look at it. You don't want to face that, because what you're going to do about it, and the guilt that brings on board, the guilt and the shame, because the parenting magazines, and it's all happy, and there's pictures of all these parents rolling on meadows with flowers in like pretty immaculate white summer dresses, holding their kids up and all that malarkey, and climbing trees, and everything looks absolutely idyllic. And then you've got kids fighting and screaming blue murder, and you wanting to kill them, going on in your house, and the shame and the guilt that brings is just huge. And that was what really came out, was that how cathartic it was to speak to other parents who also understand that shame and that guilt. And as we've just had in the chat as well, one of our members saying that teachers telling you it's bad parenting. Yeah, we get teachers telling you it's bad parenting. You get CAMS professionals and psychologists and putting you on parenting courses and telling you that it's you as a bad parent, when they just don't understand ADHD, Steph.
Yeah.
And that society doesn't understand ADHD. So this is why we carry such a lot of guilt and shame, isn't it?
That's it. And particularly because there's such a lack of ADHD awareness. And I don't know about you, Michelle, but yeah, when you go and talk to the teachers and they don't understand ADHD, you don't know what ADHD is, you've got no idea. And yet, you can't do anything about it when you don't understand what it is and how to address it. And there's just so much more awareness that is needed in so many industry sectors, education, healthcare, even though, and that's the problem. Remember the APPG, the GPs, the gateway to assessment, to diagnosis. They don't get it, a lot of them.
Yeah, exactly. They just don't get it. And that guilt, because people don't get it, as somebody's just said in the chat on the Facebook group, she gets angry. We all get angry and we end up shouting. We all, let's be honest, how many of us shout at the kids when we lose it? The guilt is terrible, because you're not supposed to do that, but they push your buttons. And more often than not, we've got ADHD as well, and you do end up yelling at them because it's probably just fairly normal reaction. And people don't admit to that because of the guilt and shame. And I think because we're quite honest and open about our ADHD, and it is really, 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 really hard.
It is really, 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 really hard.
And somebody's just said it's so hard. Some days I could run away.
Yes.
I have honestly wanted to do that, and I have actually, had somebody come in and go, "Can you just babysit, because I just needed to get out, because otherwise I didn't know what I was going to do." So hard.
Yeah, guys, it's and I think why it's so difficult for us, because when you're not talking to other ADHDers, other parents with ADHD, or parents that have kids with ADHD, or the combination of all of it, they just don't get it. Like, you can't, you don't know how it feels unless you're going through it, you're living it. It's hard enough even if you're a neurotypical and just your children were ADHD, I mean, that's very challenging. But when you got ADHD yourself, and because you're going to have to try and manage your own ADHD as well as managing your children's executive function, challenges, and, you're always overwhelmed or having trouble yourself. And then add to that, obviously, I think it's that emotional dysregulation that I would say is obviously the biggest barrier to the parenting, because it's really hard to stay calm when your child has done something, and and keep it together, hold the space for them. Well, it is so difficult.
And if you try too hard to do that, as we discussed, it can sometimes come across as inauthentic, because I've done, read all the parenting books and thought you're going to implement this, but they're driving you nuts and you're going to lose it. But then you act a bit Stepford Wives and they can spot it, and then that makes them even more angry. So like you're just being like a robot. So you have to be authentic. And one of our members has just said in the chat that she admitted that to us on yesterday, that she loses it sometimes and it's hard for her. And I think that is one of the keys here, is to be authentic and genuine, and to show that you can manage your emotions, and that you're modeling being honest. Really, obviously we don't want to tell our kids that we're falling apart and make them insecure, but there's a difference between I'm falling apart and I'm finding this difficult because I'm modeling those good communication skills and modeling identifying feelings. I'm finding this difficult, I'm feeling this, so I need time to cool down, is really important, because then they'll pick that up, with their own ADHD, and maybe pass that on to their kids. But if I could just say to everybody before I forget, that I have been to hell and back over the years, and my kids have come out the other side now in their 20s, my oldest two, and they're just wonderful and they're just brilliant. And at times I never thought that was going to happen. So please just hang on in there, guys, because it's really, really hard. But your kids are wonderful, and they've got these wonderful creative gifts which they'll come into their own one day with your love and support. And it might seem completely hopeless at times, especially when they're teenagers, but I promise you will get through it, and you'll look back on it and laugh, as I do now.
You're going to have to remind me, like my eldest is now 11, so not quite there yet, but I'm freaking out. So Michelle, you'll have to, and the community, and that's what the ADHD Unlocked community membership is there for us to kind of get through these really difficult, really kind of huge kind of times that can really just break up families, marriages, our own, break ourselves, having breakdowns. It is highly stressful situations that come about as a result of this ADHD family dynamic. So I mean, in terms of how things were for us personally before we knew about the ADHD, my own ADHD, the whole families, the kids, it was like what you've said, hell. It was what I would describe, it was toxic. It was a toxic environment. And a lot of our members resonated with that.
Yeah, and I think facing and kind of facing how difficult it's been has been why it's been so challenging this week, and so cathartic and freeing to talk about parenting. Because I know many of you know that I did come close to ending my life before I got diagnosed, which led on to my diagnosis for ADHD. Sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional. And it was guilt and shame over parenting mainly that drove me to that very, very dark place. So I think it's so important to air this, because there'll be others out there that possibly don't know that they've got ADHD, or their kids do, as I didn't. Everybody got diagnosed afterwards. So that's why we need to talk about this and get this out there, because how many other people are really struggling? I bet you there's so many, and it just breaks my heart. But we can't talk about it with the people in the playground, can we? Because they're just talking about, what reading book, whatever, what's going on, what GCSE results, and you just think we're just trying to survive here.
Yeah. And then add to that, obviously, the RSD element, as you said, with the guilt and shame. And that's why it's so strong in parents with ADHD, because, they just, compared to the neurotypical parents, everyone else, they're failing. And I think one of our members just said here that that relief, that it's not that she thought that maybe she was a bad mother, but no, it's not that she's a bad mother, she's just a struggling one. That's a really important distinction to make.
And you're doing great, given that, possibly you've got the kids as well, that dynamic, you're doing brilliantly. Whereas every day I used to, all day, every day, that negative self-talk about my parenting, you're a bad mother, look at you, you're a bad mother. It just grinds you to dust. Absolutely grinds you to dust. So what you've got to do is to quell that negative self-talk and just keep telling yourself that you're doing a good job and that your kids will be okay. And I can be testament to that, having got through the other side, and really, really want to say, I know how dark that tunnel is, but you will get through it.
Yeah, it's and I think what's really important, as we always talk about, is that making sure that your tank is full, because you know that when our ADHD is out of control, so making sure you're treated. So if you do have ADHD, you do access treatment and support. If that, therapy, coaching, ADHD Unlocked, make sure that your friends can understand it, you understand it, that you're looking at your child through, and yourself really, through the ADHD lens. And it's not an excuse, but rather an explanation. Because I know a lot of ADHDers, they don't, they beat us. We beat ourselves up. We don't like to make any excuses, set the bar very high for ourselves. But it's about really kind of stepping back and taking space for yourself and making sure that you can hold the space, right? So that's where the self-care is really important, as well as the knowledge of your ADHD.
It's probably more important if you think, oh, I haven't spent enough time with kids, blah, 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 that after work or whatever, you go for a 5-minute walk, or you go for 10 minutes in the woods on your own, or you do some meditation, or you go and do some yoga, and take that space and then join your kids, and then you'd be more present with them, rather than go, oh, I feel guilty, I can't take this time because I should be with them now. But the time that you do have with them, if you do take that space, promise you, will be so much more worthwhile and less stressed, and you'll feel less guilty and be more connected and meaningful, if that makes sense.
No, that's so spot on, because we are guilty of that, particularly during the pandemic now, when we're working from home, trying to juggle everything. And so I mean, I know I can be guilty of that quite often, that I'll finish coaching and I'll feel, oh, I need to get downstairs and see the girls. But if I don't take that time out, and actually I was able to do it through that. Remember, we did anxiety week, Michelle, and we're using the DARE techniques, and it worked. It actually worked. I'd never actually viewed it as anxiety, more kind of guilt, but the guilt kind of came from that anxious thought of, oh, what if I'm a bad mom? What if the kids think I'm a bad mom because I'm not down there with them? And I had to use that whole diffusing, so what, allow the anxious thoughts and feelings, and really kind of get rational about why I needed to fill my tank. And that evening, I was so much better for having taken that time, like completely different, really. So it's about being able to set those boundaries. And these are things that we cover in ADHD Unlocked. We've already covered them. And boundaries, self-care, that negative self-talk, rejection, sensitive dysphoria, communication, now parenting this week. We've got a lot to deal with, and we need to do so together with other people that get it. Really, really important.
Yeah, so just to pick up a last couple of things from the chat, that taking space, Steph, is really important to model for your kids, so that they can pass that on. So somebody's just said in the chat, absolutely. Really, really important. And somebody else has just said, there's a constant battle up and down, wondering how you'll ever get it right. Let go of that getting it right and wrong in your head, and just be.
Yeah,
let it go. Try and curb that. If you say, oh, I'm not doing this right, or I'm doing this wrong, just be with them and try and think, is there a right and wrong here? There isn't. Let's remove that from the headset here. The mindset, sorry, not the headset.
Just as well, there's no right or wrong.
Yes, so that's really, really important. Just be, and get your oxygen mask on first. And there's an awful lot to deal with, an awful lot to unpick here. And next week in the Unlocked community, based on some of the themes that have come out of this week, we're looking at the generational impact of ADHD. So how did you get on with your parents or your siblings or your grandparents? And what impact has undiagnosed ADHD had on the wider family and your relationships, maybe with your own parents? Because I know a lot of us have had difficult relationships with parents and challenging relationships with parents. So I know this is another challenging subject.
And then one of our members has said, "Oh goodness, next." Yeah, but yeah, these are big topics, big subjects, but you know, again, if we're together, we can get through this. Bit of humor, a bit of perspective, right? Context, which us ADHDers aren't very good at that perspective, but that's what we're here for. We can lend that to each other and support each other. So, and then there was one last thing I wanted to just quickly mention was the one of our members talked about how a quote came to mind for him: "Love is patient, love is kind." And then I kind of put the next quote about from Buddha: "True love is born from understanding." And definitely it's that coming from that place of just love and compassion for both your child and yourself. And the more you do it for yourself, you're modeling that for your child. And that's where Brene Brown's quote, which I don't think I've posted up in the main group yet, so I'll do that after this, but the family kind of manifesto, which is amazing, so on point, and will help you hopefully be vulnerable with your children and have that compassion that we need.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and you read it beautifully, Steph. So the video's up there, but if you could post the actual wording as a parenting manifesto. But when you said love is patient, love is kind, can I urge you all to not think, oh, I've got to be patient and kind to my kids. The primary thing, well, you do have to be, but the primary way to do that is to be patient and kind with yourself. And so that's what the biggest takeaway that we would like you to have from today's live session. So I'm probably going to go and need these. The tissues are available. But thank you all so much for this week, because it has been hard. Next week's going to be really, really hard. But do join us, join the membership community. I mean, Steph, we've had some amazing quotes, haven't we, this week from members?
Yeah, I mean, people have said, one member said it's really good for us all to get this out. Yeah, which I found on Monday, because what do they say? There's a book, The Body Keeps the Score. And as ADHDers, a lot of us don't stop long enough or kind of even think about how it feels in our body, because we're so much in our head. But really, and that's what happened to me on Monday, just talking it through, and here I'm kind of crying it all out, because some of us just don't stop to really process this stuff. So it is really good for us to get it all out. And then another member was saying this, I loved this one actually, by talking about ADHD and how actually by having ADHD as a parent, how that can really help our children with ADHD, because we understand it. And also some of the traits that we have, that kind of fun and spontaneity, and there's some really good qualities. And one of the members said, in that case, I'm glad I got the ADHD. And that, yeah, I mean, that's just exactly what we want. Where we want to get to, all of us, because guys, we got it. It ain't going away. So we have to just accept it and embrace it. So that's the place we want to get to.
So I mean, it's just been amazing this week, and I'm so proud of everybody for getting through this and being so open and honest and just getting it all out there. And shame dies when stories are shared in safe places, is the quote. So that's what we have been doing. So this is great. So do join us. Go to adhdunlocked.co.uk and click through to the shop, and you can join us to get all of the benefits of membership, which is growing all the time, and it's just incredible. Incredibly proud. So thank you so much, everybody. So Steph, I don't know if you've got anything to add.
I'm going to be posting parenting tips actually up in our membership community. So again, come and join us, because lots of resources for you guys. And hopefully, we'll see you soon. You don't have to do this alone. We shouldn't. It's too difficult. Don't do it alone. And yeah, hopefully we'll see more of you.
Yeah, it takes the village, and we are the village here, the ADHD village. So have a wonderful weekend. For those of you that are superstitious, I'm not. It's Friday the 13th, so bring it on, and have a great one. Have a great weekend and top up your tanks and just be. So thank you, everybody, and take care, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.